The velvet box felt wrong in my hands the moment I picked it up to light to hollow my grandmother's emerald ring. The stunning vintage piece she'd left me just 2 years ago was gone. I stood frozen in my bedroom staring at the empty indentware. It should have been nestled safely while I showered. My name is Leela Morgan, and I never thought my own sister would betray me like this. He set the box down with trembling fingers and forced myself to breathe slowly, methodically, the way I'd learned in law school when facing hostile witnesses or impossible cases. But this wasn't court, this was my sanctuary, my home, the place where I kept the most precious thing. I owned the last tangible connection to the woman who'd raised me to be strong, to be independent, to never apologize for taking up space in the world. Grandma Evelyn's ring wasn't just jewelry, it was a promise, a legacy, a reminder that I came from women who didn't bend or break under pressure. The emerald had been passed down through 3 generations, each woman choosing the next not by birth order, but by character, by the strength to carry forward something that mattered more than its monetary value. Though God knows it was worth a small fortune, I tore through my jewelry box again, lifting every velvet compartment, checking behind every necklace and bracelet. Maybe I'd moved it, maybe in my pre-wedding stress I'd tucked it somewhere else for safekeeping. But no, I knew exactly where. I always kept it right here in the center compartment, where I could see it every morning when I chose my earrings for work, where it caught the light from my bedroom window and reminded me who I was before the world tried to tell me otherwise. The shower water was still running in my in-suit bathroom, steam fogging the mirror where I'd been getting ready for my appointment with the estate lawyer. Today was supposed to be simple routine. Even I was going to update my will, include provisions for the ring, ensure it would pass to the right hand someday, just as Grandma Evelyn had done for me. But now there was nothing to pass down, nothing but an empty box and the sick feeling in my stomach that told me exactly who had taken it. Cassie, my younger sister by 3 years. My parents' golden child, their beautiful, charming social media darling who'd never worked a real day in her life, who lived off sponsorship deals and the bank of mom and dad, who'd always believed the world owed her something special just for existing, and who'd been eyeing that ring since the day I inherited it, making comments about how it didn't really suit me, how vintage wasn't my style, how she'd always been the one who appreciated antique jewelry. Thought about the last time she'd been in my apartment 2 weeks ago, when she'd stopped by supposedly to borrow my good camera for a photo shoot, but I'd caught her in my bedroom, door open, jewelry box lid raised, claiming she was just admiring my collection. But her eyes had lingered too long on the emerald. Her fingers had traced the air above it like she was already wearing it, already planning how it would look in her perfectly curated Instagram feed. Me phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Ben, my fiancé, asking if I was ready for lunch after my lawyer appointment. The normalcy of it, the sweetness of his concern made my chest tight with something between love and fury. How could I explain this to him? How could I tell the man I was going to marry in 6 months that my own family couldn't be trusted, that the sister who was supposed to be my maid of honor had stolen the one thing that meant more to me than anything else in the world? I walked to my living room window and looked down at the parking lot. Cassie's white BMW wasn't there, but then it wouldn't be. She was smart enough not to park where I could see her coming and going, smart enough to know that I'd noticed the ring missing eventually, smart enough to plan her theft around my schedule, my routines. My trust letter was still in my desk drawer. Grandma Evelyn's final words to me, written in her careful script on cream-colored stationery that smelled faintly of lavender and determination. My dearest Leela, this ring belongs to you, not because you are the eldest, but because you understand its true value. You know that some things cannot be bought or sold or traded. They can only be earned through living with integrity and courage. Wear it knowing that you carry forward the strength of all the women who came before you, and someday, when you have learned what it means to fight for what matters, you will know who deserves to carry it next. All my love, Grandma. I'd read that letter 100 times, memorized every loop and line, every pause and emphasis. She'd known even then that I would face a test, that someone would try to take what was mine, that I would have to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for myself, and she trusted me to make the right choice, even if it meant losing people I loved. Me hands shook as I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. Cassie's account was always perfectly curated, a stream of sponsored content, lifestyle shots, and humble brags about her influencer success. But there at the top of her feed, posted just 3 hours ago, was a photo that made my blood freeze. Ish was sitting in what looked like an expensive restaurant, her left hand positioned prominently on the white tablecloth, showing off a ring that caught the light with unmistakable green fire. The emerald, my emerald, surrounded by the delicate Art Deco Setting that I knew by heart. The caption read, "Anniversary vibes with my love Tyler, couldn't be more blessed to have someone who truly sees me. Grateful, grateful, grateful. #authentic, #blessed, #vintage vibes." The comments were already rolling in, her followers gushing over the ring, asking where it came from, praising Tyler for his excellent taste. One person had written, "Oh my god, is that a vintage emerald? So you Cassie, you have the best taste in antique jewelry." And Cassie had responded with heart eye emojis, "And he knows me so well." I screenshotted everything, my lawyer training kicking in even through the rage, evidence, documentation, proof that she was not only wearing my ring but claiming it as a gift from her boyfriend of 6 months, spinning a whole romantic narrative around something she'd stolen from my bedroom while I was in the shower, trusting her, believing that family meant something more than material gain. Tyler Grant, I'd met him twice at family dinners, a tech entrepreneur with more money than sense who seemed charmed by Cassie's influencer lifestyle, but struck me as the type who enjoyed having a beautiful woman on his arm more than actually knowing the person wearing his gifts. He was wealthy enough to buy expensive jewelry, impulsive enough to make grand romantic gestures, and clueless enough not to ask too many questions about authenticity or provenance. But I knew that ring. I'd held it, studied it, worn it on special occasions. When I needed to feel connected to something bigger than myself, I knew every facet of the emerald, every tiny inclusion that proved its age and authenticity. I knew the way the light hit the setting, the exact weight of it on my finger, the way it caught on silk scarves and delicate fabrics. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity or coincidental similarity. This was my grandmother's ring, the ring that had been promised to me. The ring that represented everything I'd worked for and everything I'd inherited from a long line of strong women who'd refused to be silenced or sidelined. And Cassie had stolen it, photographed it, lied about it, and was now using it to build her brand, her image. Her carefully constructed online person. I called her immediately, my fingers moving before my brain could stop them, but it went straight to voicemail, her cheerful recorded voice telling me she was probably creating content and would get back to me soon. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I texted her, "We need to talk about the ring." Short, direct, impossible to misinterpret. Response came back within minutes. "What ring? ? Confused face emoji. "Talk to you later, babe. Getting my nails done." The casual dismissal, the fake confusion, the immediate deflection. It was classic Cassie: deny, deflect, distract, make the other person feel crazy for even asking the question. But I wasn't 22 anymore. I wasn't the insecure big sister who always backed down when she flashed her perfect smile and claimed innocence. I was a corporate lawyer who'd spent years dealing with people who thought they could lie their way out of consequence. Looked at the empty velvet box again and felt something shift inside me, a hardening, a crystallizing of resolve that felt like putting on armor. Grandma Evelyn had been right. This was my test. This was the moment when I had to decide what kind of woman I was going to be. Whether I would fight for what was mine or let myself be gaslighted and manipulated into silence. Eben deserved to know what was happening. He deserved to understand why I might be quiet at lunch, why my hands might shake when I reached for my water glass, why I might seem distracted when he talked about wedding plans and honeymoon destinations. This wasn't just about a stolen ring. This was about discovering that the people who were supposed to love and protect me were willing to lie to my face and steal from me. Without a second thought, he picked up my purse and keys and headed for the door. The lawyer appointment would have to wait. There were more pressing legal matters to consider now, like whether I was prepared to involve the police in what was clearly a case of theft, regardless of family relationships, like whether I was ready to demand accountability from people who'd spent my entire life teaching me that keeping the peace was more important than standing up for myself. The elevator ride down felt eternal, each floor marking another layer of certainty settling over me. Cassie had made her choice. She'd chosen deception over honesty, theft of a respect, lies over family. She'd counted on my silence, my politeness, my lifetime of being the responsible one who never made waves. But she'd miscalculated badly, because this ring wasn't just about money or jewelry or even family history. This ring was about identity, about knowing who I was and where I came from, about carrying forward the legacy of women who'd fought for everything they hadn't. I was about to show her exactly how much fight I'd inherited along with that emerald. The parking garage elevator opened and I stepped out into the crisp afternoon air, still carrying the weight of that empty velvet box in my purse like evidence of a crime that everyone would pretend hadn't happened. But I wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time, not when it involved the one thing Grandma Evelyn had trusted me to protect and preserve. I called my mother first, because despite everything, despite years of watching her coddle Cassie and dismiss my concerns, I still hoped somewhere deep in my chest that when faced with actual theft, actual betrayal, she would choose justice over favoritism, choose her daughter who worked hard and lived honestly over the one who lied as easily. As breathing Leela Honeymom's voice was warm and distracted, I could hear the sound of her yoga instructor on the television in the background. What's wrong? You sound upset. I need to talk to the family tonight, I said, keeping my voice steady. Professional the way I spoke to opposing counsel. When I was about to destroy their case, it's about Cassie, and it's serious. There was a pause, too long a pause that told me she already knew something was wrong. Oh honey, what has she done now? The resignation in her voice, the automatic assumption that Cassie had done something wrong, should have been comforting, but instead it made me furious because it meant this was a pattern. It meant my mother had been enabling this behavior for years. She stole Grandma Evelyn's ring, Mom, the emerald ring that was left to me. She's wearing it online, claiming Tyler gave it to her, and I want it back tonight. Another pause, longer this time, followed by that familiar sound my mother made when she was about to minimize something that mattered to me. Leela, sweetheart, are you sure? I mean, Cassie has been seeing Tyler for months now, and he's quite generous. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, I said. And I could hear my voice getting sharper, could feel my professional mask slipping. I have photos, I have documentation. I know my own grandmother's ring, Mom. And I know when I've been robbed. Robbed is such a strong word, she said. And there it was, the immediate leap to protect Cassie, the immediate assumption that I was being dramatic, that I was the problem. Why don't we all sit down tonight and talk about this calmly? Maybe we can work something out like this was a business negotiation, like my inheritance was up for debate, like the woman who'd raised me to be strong and independent hadn't specifically chosen me to carry forward her legacy. Fine, I said. Sunday dinner at your house, 6 o'clock, and Mom, make sure Cassie brings the ring. I'll call her, Mom said, but I could already hear the wheels turning in her head. The way she would frame this as Leela being unreasonable, Leela making trouble, Leela disrupting family harmony over something that could probably be worked out if everyone just calmed down. He hung up and immediately called Dad at his office, because sometimes Richard Morgan could be reached when Elaine couldn't. Sometimes the accountant in him responded to clear facts and documentation in ways that his wife's emotional manipulation couldn't override. Leela, his voice was professional, distracted. He was probably looking at spreadsheets. While we talked, your mother said you're upset about something with Cassie. She already called you. I should have expected this, the way my parents operated, like a tag team when it came to managing their daughter's conflicts. What did she tell you? That there's some confusion about a ring that you think Cassie has, he said carefully. And I could hear him trying to navigate between his daughters, trying to stay neutral, trying to avoid taking sides the way he'd been doing my entire life. It's not confusion, Dad, it's theft. Cassie stole Grandma Evelyn's emerald ring, the one that was specifically left to me in her will, the one that's been in our family for 3 generations, and she's wearing it online, pretending her boyfriend gave it to her. Silence from Dad's end, and I knew he was processing this. The way he processed everything, slowly, methodically, looking for ways to minimize conflict. That's a serious accusation. Leela, are you absolutely certain? I'm certain, Dad. I'm a lawyer. I know evidence when I see it, and I have plenty of it. I paused, letting that sink in. I'm coming to dinner tonight. And I expect Cassie to return my property, or I'll be filing a police report tomorrow morning. Let's not escalate this, he said, quick. Lie, and I could hear the panic in his voice, the fear of public scandal, of family drama spilling into the real world. I'm sure we can resolve this privately. We can resolve it very privately. I said, Cassie gives me back my ring tonight, and we never speak of this again. But if she doesn't, if she keeps lying and stealing, then this becomes a legal matter, not a family matter. I hung up before he could respond and sat in my car for a long moment, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. I'd drawn a line in the sand. I'd made threats. I'd forced a confrontation that my family had spent 30 years avoiding. And I knew that by the time I walked into my parents' house tonight, they would have had hours to coordinate their response, to plan their strategy, to figure out how to make this my fault. But I also knew that I was done being the daughter who backed down, who kept the peace, who sacrificed her own dignity to maintain family harmony. I was done being gaslight and manipulated. I was done pretending that Cassie's feelings were more important than my rights. Drive to my parents' house in Westchester took 45 minutes through Sunday traffic, past the perfectly manicured suburbs where I'd grown up, where appearance mattered more than truth, where family loyalty meant protecting the person who caused the most damage, not the person who'd been hurt. The Mosty pulled into the circular driveway behind Cassie's white BMW and Tyler's black Tesla, and felt my stomach clenched. They were already here, already coordinating their story, already preparing to gaslight me into believing that I was the crazy one, the dramatic one, the sister who couldn't just let things goblin. Had offered to come with me, but I'd told him this was something I needed to handle alone, that I needed my family to see me as I really was, not as half of a couple, not as someone who needed protection, but as a woman who could stand up for herself, who wouldn't be bullied or manipulated or made to feel small. The front door opened before I could knock, and there was Mom, looking perfectly put together in her cream-colored cashmere sweater and pearls, her hair freshly blown out, her makeup flawless as always. "Leela, honey," she said, and moved to hug me, but I stepped back. "Where's everyone?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Professional in the living room," she said, and I could see the worry in her eyes, the fear that this was going to be worse than she'd anticipated. "Leela, before we go in there, I want you to know that we're all family here, and family means working things out, not making accusations. Family means not stealing from each other," I said, and walked past her into the house that had raised me, the house where I'd learned that keeping everyone else happy was more important than standing up for myself. They were all there in the living room, Dad in his armchair pretending to read the newspaper, Cassie curled up on the sofa next to Tyler, her left hand prominently displayed on her lap, the emerald catching the light from the crystal chandelier that had been in this room since I was a child. "Leela," Cassie's voice was bright, performative, the way it always was when she knew she was in trouble. "Mom said you wanted to talk about something." I sat down across from her and pulled out my phone, opening the screenshots I'd taken of her Instagram post. "I want to talk about this," I said, holding up the screen so everyone could see. "I want to talk about the ring you're wearing, the ring that belonged to our grandmother, the ring that was left specifically to me." Cassie glanced at the phone, then at Tyler, then back at me with that expression she'd perfected over the years, innocent, confused, slightly hurt. "I don't understand," she said. "Tyler gave me this ring for our 6-month anniversary. It's not the same ring at all." "It's exactly the same ring," I said, and my voice was steady, calm, even though my heart was racing. "It's a vintage emerald cut stone in an Art Deco setting from the 1920s with specific inclusions and markings that I know by heart because I inherited it 2 years ago." Tyler shifted uncomfortably on the sofa, and I could see him looking between Cassie and me, trying to figure out what was happening. "I bought this ring from an estate jewelry dealer in the city," he said. "I have the receipt." "I'm sure you do," I said. "I'm sure Cassie sold it to them first and then helped you pick it out. What a coincidence that you happened to choose the exact same ring that went missing from my jewelry box." "That's ridiculous," Cassie said, but her voice was getting higher, thinner, the way it always did when she was lying. "I would never steal from you, Leela. How can you even say that?" "I can say it because it's true," I said, and I felt something cold and hard settling in my chest. "I can say it because I know exactly when you took it, and I know exactly why you took it, and I know that you've been planning this for weeks." Mom leaned forward from her perch on the love seat, her hands clasped together in that gesture that mean she was about to play peacemaker. "Girls, let's not make this dramatic," she said. "I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation." "The reasonable explanation is theft," I said, not taking my eyes off Cassie. "The reasonable explanation is that my sister stole my inheritance and is now lying about it to my face." "Leela, that's enough." Mom's voice was sharp now. "Cassie would never do something like that, and I won't have you making these accusations in my house." "Your house," I said, and felt something snap inside me. "This is interesting, Mom, because when Cassie borrowed money from you and never paid it back, that was family helping family, but when she steals from me, that's just a misunderstanding." "I didn't steal anything," Cassie said, and now there were tears in her eyes, real tears that would normally make everyone in the room rush to comfort her. "I can't believe you would accuse me of something so awful, Leela. I thought we were closer than this." "We were," I said, "until you decided that what was mine was yours, until you decided that my grandmother's legacy was just another prop for your Instagram feed." Dad finally looked up from his newspaper, and I could see the discomfort written all over his face. "Maybe we should all take a step back," he said. "Maybe we should think about this rationally." "I am thinking rationally," I said. "I'm thinking like a lawyer who's been robbed by someone she trusted. I'm thinking about police reports and insurance claims and the fact that what Cassie did is a felony." "A felony," Tyler said, and his voice cracked slightly. "What are you talking about?" "Grand larceny," I said. "Theft of property worth more than $1,000. The ring Cassie is wearing right now is worth about $15,000, and she stole it from my home." The room went silent, except for the sound of Cassie's sniffling, and I could see everyone processing this, the legal implications, the public scandal, the possibility that their golden child might actually face consequences for her actions. This is insane, Cassie said, and her voice was getting louder, more desperate. I didn't steal anything. Tyler bought me this ring. Ask him. If he bought it for me, I did buy it, Tyler said, but he was looking at Cassie now with something like suspicion. But if it's stolen property, if you somehow it's not stolen, Cassie said quickly. Leela is just jealous that I have someone who loves me enough to buy me beautiful things. She's always been jealous of me. Jealous, I said, and I could hear the disbelief in my own voice. You think I'm jealous of you? I think you're jealous that I'm happy, Cassie said. I think you're jealous that Tyler and I are in love and you're just going through the motions with Ben, don't I said, and my voice was dangerous now. Don't you dare bring Ben into this. Don't you dare make this about anything other than what it is, which is you stealing from me. I didn't steal anything, Cassie said again, but her voice was weaker now, less convincing. Then prove it, I said. If Tyler really bought you that ring, if it's really not the same one that belonged to Grandma Evelyn, then you won't mind having it appraised, will you? You won't mind having an expert examine it and compare it to the documentation I have. Cassie's face went white, and I knew I had her, knew that she was trapped between her lie and the truth, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel sorry for her. I think that's enough for tonight, Mom said, standing up abruptly. I think we all need to calm down and think about this more clearly. I'm perfectly clear, I said, standing up as well. I want my ring back. And I want it back tonight, or I'm calling the police tomorrow morning, Leela, Dad said, and his voice was pleading. Let's not do anything hasty, I said. She stole from me weeks ago, and I'm just finding out about it now. How is wanting my property back hasty? Because family doesn't call the police on family, Mom said. Because we work things out privately. Family doesn't steal from family either, I said, but apparently that rule only applies to me. I walked toward the door, feeling all of their eyes on me, feeling the weight of 30 years of being the reasonable one, the responsible one, the one who always backed down, crumbling behind me. Leela, wait, Cassie called out, and I turned around to see her standing up, tears streaming down her face. Please don't do this. Please don't ruin my life over a ring. I'm not ruining your life, I said. I'm asking for what's mine, what was left to me by the woman who raised me, to never let anyone make me feel small or ashamed for standing up for myself. But it's just a ring, she said. It's just jewelry. No, I said. It's not just a ring, it's my inheritance, it's my legacy, it's proof that some things in this world still matter more than likes and follows and brand deals. I walked out of the house and got in my car and drove away, leaving them all there to figure out how they were going to spin this, how they were going to ache this my fault, how they were going to protect Cassie from the consequences of her actions. One more time, but I was done protecting her. I was done being the sister who sacrificed herself for family. Peace. I was done pretending that love meant letting people hurt you without consequence. Dahmer, I would start gathering evidence tomorrow. I would build a case tomorrow. I would show my family that there were some lines that couldn't be crossed, even by golden children, even by daughters who cried pretty tears and claimed to be victims. Tonight, I was going home to Ben, who would hold me while I cried angry tears for the family I thought I had and the sister I thought I knew. The text I sent to Cassie Friday morning was carefully crafted, designed to sound innocent while giving her no room to refuse. Hey, found some of Grandma's old jewelry boxes while cleaning. Want to compare heirlooms over coffee this afternoon. I'm curious about that vintage ring Tyler got you. Her response came back within minutes. Oh my God, yes, I've been dying to show you. It's seriously gorgeous. Tyler has such good taste. Can't wait for you to see it up close. The casual enthusiasm, the complete lack of guilt or concern told me everything I needed to know about how confident she was in her lie, how certain she was that I would never actually challenge her, that family loyalty would protect her from consequence. I'd already arranged everything with Jasmine Lynn, who'd agreed to meet us at a neutral location, a coffee shop near her office, where she could examine both rings in good lighting without making it obvious that this was a professional authentication. Are you sure about this? Ben asked as I got ready that afternoon. Once you do this, there's no going back. There was no going back. The moment she stole from me, I said, checking my purse for the documentation Harold had given me and the small digital recorder I'd bought that morning. I'm just making the truth impossible to ignore. The coffee shop was one of those trendy places with exposed brick walls and reclaimed wood tables where Cassie would feel comfortable performing her lifestyle brand for any potential photographers. But today, there would be a different kind of performance. I arrived first and chose a table near the window where the natural light would be perfect for examining jewelry. Jasmine was already there at a corner table with a cup of tea and what looked like a textbook, but I knew she was really studying the documentation I'd given her preparing for the moment of truth. Cassie swept in 15 minutes late wearing a flowing bohemian dress and oversized sunglasses, even though we were indoors. The ring prominently displayed on her left hand catching the afternoon light exactly as I'd known it would. Leela, she said, kissing me like we were meeting for a casual sister date, like she hadn't stolen from me. Like our last conversation hadn't ended with me threatening to call the police. You look tired. Are you getting enough sleep? With all the wedding planning, I'm fine, I said, gesturing for her to sit down. I've just been thinking a lot about family lately, about legacy. And what Grandma Evelyn would have wanted for all of us. She would have wanted us to be happy, Cassie said, settling into her chair and immediately positioning her left hand on the table. She would have wanted us to support each other. She would have wanted her wishes to be respected, I said, and watched Cassie's smile flicker slightly. She was very specific about what she wanted to pass down and to whom. Well, sure, Cassie said, recovering quickly, but I think she would have been happy to know that her love of vintage jewelry lives on in the family. Tyler's ring is so similar to the one you inherited. It's like fate, it's like something, I said, and pulled out a small jewelry box from my purse. I brought some of Grandma's other pieces. I thought you might want to see them, compare settings and stones. Cassie leaned forward, immediately drawn to the possibility of more jewelry, more things she could covet or claim or find ways to appropriate. Oh wow, these are beautiful, she said, examining a pair of vintage earrings that had actually belonged to my other grandmother. The craftsmanship is incredible, I said, and gestured to her hand. Tyler's ring really does look like it could be from the same era. What did he say about where he found it? An estate dealer in the city, Cassie said automatically, then caught herself. I mean, that's what he told me. I don't really ask too many questions about his shopping methods. Smart, I said. Sometimes it's better not to know too much about provenance with estate jewelry. There can be complicated family situations. I saw something flicker across Cassie's face, a moment of uncertainty, like she was wondering if I was trying to tell her something, but then her natural narcissism kicked in and she assumed I was just making conversation. Excuse me, a voice said behind us, and we both turned to see Jasmine approaching our table. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help noticing that beautiful emerald ring. Are you ladies jewelry enthusiasts? Cassie immediately brightened at the attention from a stranger who'd noticed her ring. Thank you, it was a gift from my boyfriend. He has incredible taste. It's stunning, Jasmine said. Aunt, I could see her examining the ring even from a distance. I'm actually a gemologist and I rarely see vintage pieces that well preserved. Would you mind if I took a closer look? I promise I'll be careful. Of course, Cassie said, practically glowing with pride as she extended her hand. I love showing it off. It's such a unique piece. Jasmine pulled out a small jeweler's loupe and bent over Cassie's hand, studying the ring with professional intensity. This is remarkable, she said. The setting is definitely 1920s Art Deco, and the stone has some very distinctive characteristics. Tyler said it was from an estate sale. Cassie said apparently it had quite a history. I'll bet it did, Jasmine said, straightening up and looking directly at me. Actually, this ring reminds me of one I appraised recently for an insurance claim. Would you mind if I made a quick call to check something? Sure, Cassie said, but I could see confusion starting to creep into her expression. Jasmine stepped away and pulled out her phone, making what looked like a business call, but I knew she was really calling her office to confirm the details she'd already memorized from my grandmother's documentation. And she came back. Her expression was more serious, professional. I need to ask you both something important, she said. Do either of you know anything about a missing emerald ring that was recently reported stolen from an estate in Westchester? Cassie's face went completely white, and I felt something cold and victorious settle in my stomach. What do you mean? Cassie said, and her voice was barely a whisper. I mean that the ring you're wearing matches the exact description of a piece that was stolen from an inheritance, Jasmine said, and I'm legally obligated to report potential stolen merchandise when I encounter it. That's impossible, Cassie said, but she was already sliding her hand under the table, trying to hide the ring. Tyler bought this from a legitimate dealer. He has receipts, ma'am, Jasmine said, and her voice was gentle but firm. I need you to understand that the ring you're wearing has very specific characteristics that match a piece of documented stolen property. The stone has distinctive inclusions. The setting has particular markers. This isn't a case of similar jewelry. This is the same ring. You're wrong, Cassie said, and she was starting to panic now. You have to be wrong. Tyler wouldn't buy stolen jewelry. He's not that kind of person. I'm sure he didn't know, Jasmine said. Estate theft often involves pieces being sold quickly through legitimate channels, but that doesn't change the fact that this ring was stolen from its rightful owner. Cassie turned to look at me, and I saw the exact moment when she realized that this wasn't a coincidence, that I had orchestrated this entire encounter. You planned this, she said. And her voice was raw with betrayal. You set me up, I documented a crime, I said. Calmly, I provided evidence to a professional, who confirmed what I already knew, that you're wearing my grandmother's ring, the ring that was left specifically to me. I didn't steal anything, Cassie said, but the words sounded hollow even to her. Tyler bought this ring. Tyler gave it to me. Tyler bought stolen property, Jasmine said, which makes this a police matter regardless of his intentions. No, Cassie said, standing up so quickly her chair fell over. No, this is insane. This is my ring. Tyler loves me. He wouldn't lie to me. Tyler might not have known, I said. But you did. You knew exactly what you were taking when you went into my jewelry box. You knew exactly whose inheritance you were stealing. I didn't steal anything, Cassie said again, but she was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I would never. I'm not a thief. The evidence says otherwise, Jasmine said, and pulled out her business card. I'm going to need to file a report about this, but I'd suggest you contact the police yourself and explain the situation. Voluntary cooperation usually goes better than waiting for them to come to you. Cassie looked around the coffee shop at the other customers, who were starting to stare at the crying woman with the dramatic scene unfolding at table 12. This isn't over, she said to me. This isn't over, Leela. You're destroying our family over a piece of jewelry. I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm reclaiming what was stolen from me. Cassie grabbed her purse and ran out of the coffee shop, leaving her sunglasses on the table, and I watched her go, feeling something that wasn't quite satisfaction, but wasn't quite sadness either, just a deep sense of finality. Are you alright? Jasmine asked, sitting down in Cassie's abandoned chair. I'm fine, I said. Thank you for doing this. I know it was unconventional. Not really, Jasmine said. I encounter stolen jewelry more often than you might think. Family theft is actually quite common. People assume that blood relations give them rights to other people's property. What happens now? I asked. Now I file my report, Jasmine said, and I strongly recommend that you contact the police before your sister does. Her version of events might be very different from what actually happened here. I nodded and pulled out my phone, already dialing the non-emergency number for the local police department. Officer, I'd like to report a theft of inherited property, I said when someone answered. I have documentation and a professional witness, and the stolen item has been located. The appointment was set for Monday morning, and I spent the weekend preparing myself for the next phase, knowing that Cassie would spend the same weekend trying to figure out how to spin this, how to make herself the victim, how to turn our parents against me one final time. But I had evidence now. I had witnesses. I had professional confirmation that I was right and she was wrong, and for the first time since this started, I felt like the truth was stronger than their family mythology. Sunday night, Ben found me reading Grandma Evelyn's letter again, and he sat down beside me on the couch. How do you feel? He asked. Like I'm finally becoming the woman she wanted me to be, I said. Like I'm finally strong enough to fight for what matters. My phone rang at exactly 9 p.m. Jasmine's number on the caller ID. Ms. Morgan, she said. I wanted to let you know that I've completed my report. The ring your sister was wearing is definitely the same piece described in your grandmother's documentation. There's no doubt whatsoever. Thank you, I said. That means everything. There's something else, Jasmine said. I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never seen such thorough documentation. Your grandmother clearly loved you very much, and she wanted to make sure you'd be able to prove your ownership if anyone ever challenged it. After I hung up, I sat there thinking about Grandma Evelyn, about her wisdom and foresight, about the way she'd prepared me for this battle, even from beyond the grave, and I knew that whatever happened next, I was ready for it. Truth was on my side now. That was all I needed. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Monday morning, Mom's name flashing on the screen before I was even fully awake, before I'd had coffee, before I'd mentally prepared myself for whatever version of events Cassie had fed them over the weekend. Leela, Mom's voice was tight, controlled the way it got when she was trying very hard not to lose her temper. We need to talk about what happened on Friday. Cassie is devastated. She's been crying all weekend. Good, I said, and I could hear the coldness in my own voice. Maybe she'll cry hard enough to wash off some of the guilt. How can you say that? Mom said. How can you be so cruel to your own sister? She's falling apart over this misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, I said, getting out of bed and walking to the kitchen, where Ben was already making coffee, his expression grim because he could hear Mom's voice through the phone. It's theft, and now there's professional documentation to prove it. This gemologist person Cassie told us about, Mom said she ambushed her at that coffee shop. That's entrapment. That's not legal. It's not entrapment. When someone voluntarily shows off stolen property, I said, and Jasmine Lin is a certified professional appraiser, whose testimony will hold up in any court. You're talking about court. Mom's voice cracked. You're talking about taking your sister to court over jewelry. I'm talking about recovering stolen property, I said, and if that requires legal action, then yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Your father wants to see you. Mom said he wants to meet this morning before you do anything hasty. He thinks we can work this out privately. The time for working things out privately ended when Cassie decided to steal from me, I said, but I'll give him one final chance to do the right thing. I hung up and looked at Ben, who was holding out a mug of coffee like armor against the morning. How bad is it going to be? He asked. Pretty bad, I said, but I'm ready for it. The meeting was set for 9 a.m. at my parents' house, and I arrived with a leather portfolio containing copies of everything: Jasmine's report, Harold's documentation, the police report number I'd been assigned, and a timeline of Cassie's social media posts showing her flaunting the stolen ring. Dad answered the door, looking older than I remembered, his face drawn with the kind of exhaustion that came from trying to hold together something that was already broken. Leela, he said. Thank you for coming. Mom was in the living room, sitting rigidly on the edge of the sofa, her hands folded in her lap, like she was preparing for battle. Cassie was curled up in the corner chair, still wearing the emerald ring, still clinging to her light. Even now, where's Tyler? I asked, sitting down across from them. We broke up, Cassie said, and her voice was small, defeated. He said he couldn't be with someone who brought drama into his life. He said he couldn't be with someone who involved him in theft. I corrected. There's a difference. It's not theft, Cassie said, but the words came out automatic, rehearsed, like she'd been saying them all weekend, trying to convince herself. Tyler bought that ring legitimately. Tyler bought stolen property, I said, and opened my portfolio, which I can now prove beyond any reasonable doubt. I spread the documents across the coffee table the way I would present evidence to a jury, methodical, thorough, leaving no room for interpretation. Here's the original appraisal from 2018 showing the specific characteristics of Grandma Evelyn's ring. Here's the gemological certification documenting the stone's unique inclusions. Here's the inheritance paperwork proving it was left specifically to me. Dad leaned forward and studied the papers, his accountant's eye taking in the details. The official letterheads, the professional documentation. This is very thorough, he said quietly, and here I continued, pulling out Jasmine's report, is the professional authentication confirming that the ring Cassie is wearing right now matches these documents exactly. The same stone, the same setting, the same distinctive markings. She made that up, Cassie said, but her voice was weak. She's lying to help you. She's a certified gemologist with 20 years of experience, I said. She has no reason to lie, and every reason to tell the truth. Her professional reputation depends on accurate assessments. What about the estate dealer? Mom said, grasping for something, anything that might support Cassie's story. Tyler said he bought it from a legitimate business. Estate dealers buy from estate sales, I said, which means someone sold them stolen property first, which means there's a paper trail that will lead back to whoever fenced my ring. Fenced, Dad said, and I could see him processing the criminal terminology. The implications of what I was saying. Yes, fenced, I said. Because that's what this is, Dad. This is a felony theft of inherited property, worth $15,000. Now there's professional documentation proving it. You're being so dramatic, Mom said. But I could hear the desperation creeping into her voice. It's just a ring, it's just jewelry. Surely we can work something out. It's not just a ring, I said, and I felt my voice rising. It's my inheritance. It's what Grandma Evelyn specifically left to me. It's a piece of family history that Cassie stole and then lied about, and now she's wearing it like a trophy. I didn't steal it, Cassie said. But she was crying now, real tears that weren't for the cameras, weren't for sympathy. Just raw fear. I didn't mean for this to happen. What did you mean to happen? I asked. What was your plan here exactly? Cassie stopped and wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. I just wanted something beautiful, something that made me feel special. So you took something that belonged to me, I said. Something that wasn't yours to take. You have everything, Cassie said, and her voice was getting louder, more desperate. You have your perfect job, and your perfect fiancé, and your perfect life. And I have nothing. You have nothing because you've never worked for anything, I said. You've spent your whole life expecting other people to give you what you want instead of earning it yourself. That's not fair, Mom said, jumping to Cassie's defense exactly as I'd known she would. Cassie works very hard at her social media career. Stealing jewelry and lying about it on Instagram isn't a career, I said. It's fraud enough, Dad said, and his voice was sharp enough to cut through the emotional chaos. Enough of this. We all turned to look at him, and I could see something shifting in his face, some internal decision being made. Cassie, he said, I want you to take off that ring right now. Daddy, no. Cassie said, please don't make me, it's mine. Tyler gave it to me. Tyler gave you stolen property, Dad said, and if you don't return it voluntarily right now, then your sister is going to call the police and this becomes a criminal matter. Richard, Mom said. You can't be serious. I'm dead serious, Dad said, and he was looking at me now. Leela has documentation, she has professional witnesses, she has a case, and if Cassie doesn't return the ring voluntarily, then she's going to be arrested for theft. You would let them arrest your own daughter? Mom said, I would let them arrest a thief, Dad said, which is what Cassie is, whether we want to admit it or not. I can't believe this, Cassie said, standing up and backing toward the door. I can't believe you're all turning against me. We're not turning against you, I said. We're asking you to face consequences for your actions. I won't do it, Cassie sighed. I won't give you the ring, it's mine, and Tyler loves me. And he wants me to have beautiful things. Tyler broke up with you, I said gently. Tyler wants nothing to do with you. Because you made him an accessory to theft. No, Cassie said, and she was shaking now. No, that's not what happened. That's exactly what happened, Dad said. And if you don't return your sister's property right now, I'm calling the police myself. You wouldn't, Cassie said, but I could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that her usual manipulation tactics weren't working. Try me, Dad said, and pulled out his phone. Wait, Mom said, wait, please, let's just think about this rationally. I've been thinking rationally for days, I said. I've been building a case, gathering evidence, trying to give you all the chance to do the right thing voluntarily, and we appreciate that, Dad said, but this ends now, Cassie. Either you give Leela back her ring, or I call the police. And you explain to them why you're wearing stolen property. Cassie looked around the room at all of us, and I could see her calculating, looking for an angle, looking for someone who would rescue her from the consequences of her choices. But for the first time in her life, no one was coming to save her. Fine, she said, and her voice was venomous. Fine, you want your precious ring so badly, you can have it. She yanked it off her finger and threw it at me, and I caught it instinctively, feeling the familiar weight of it in my palm, the emerald catching the morning light streaming through the living room windows. But don't expect me to forgive you for this, Cassie said. Don't expect me to forget that you chose a piece of jewelry over your own sister. I didn't choose jewelry over family, I said, standing up and slipping the ring into my pocket. I chose truth over lies. I chose justice over enabling. I chose to be the kind of woman Grandma Evelyn raised me to be. Grandma Evelyn would be ashamed of you, Cassie said. Grandma Evelyn would be proud of me, I said, for standing up for myself, for not letting anyone steal from me, even if they share my DNA. Cassie stormed out of the house, slamming the front door behind her. And we sat there in the silence she left behind, the weight of what had just happened settling over all of us. I'm sorry, Dad said finally. I'm sorry it took this long for me to see what was really happening. I'm sorry too, I said. I'm sorry it had to come to this. I'm not sorry, Mom said, and her voice was cold. I'm not sorry that I tried to protect my daughter from being destroyed by her own sister. You protected the wrong daughter, Dad said. You enabled a thief and you gaslight the victim. I did what mothers do, Mom said. I loved my child unconditionally. Love doesn't mean protecting people from consequences, I said. Love means helping them become better people. I gathered up my documents and put them back in the portfolio, feeling the ring in my pocket like a weight lifted, like a burden finally resolved. What happens now, Dad asked. Now I go home, I said, and I put Grandma Evelyn's ring back where it belongs, and I move on with my life. And Cassie, Mom asked. Cassie faces whatever consequences come from her choices, I said, just like the rest of us. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The ring safely returned to its rightful place, my grandmother's legacy restored, my own integrity intact, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like I could breathe again. But I also knew that this was just the beginning, that Cassie wouldn't accept defeat gracefully, that my family would never be the same after today, and that some bridges once burned could never be rebuilt. The question now was whether I was strong enough to live with the consequences of choosing truth over peace. And as I pulled into my driveway and saw Ben waiting for me on the front steps, I knew that the answer was yes. The ring sat in its velvet box on my dresser, where it belonged, where it had always belonged, but somehow everything felt different now, like putting a puzzle piece back in place, only to discover that the rest of the picture had changed while it was missing. Ben found me there Tuesday morning, just staring at it, trying to process what it meant to have won. Any regrets, he asked, sitting down beside me on the bed. None about getting it back, I said, but I keep thinking about the look on Cassie's face when Dad finally stood up to her, like her whole world was collapsing. Her world was built on lies, Ben said gently. Maybe it needed to collapse. My phone had been buzzing all morning, texts from Mom, that I was ignoring calls from numbers I didn't recognize, probably reporters who'd somehow gotten wind of the story because nothing stayed private in the age of social media and influencer drama, but it wasn't until I opened Instagram that I saw how bad things had really gotten. Cassie's account was in meltdown mode. First post from yesterday afternoon was a tearful video of her sitting in her car, mascara running down her cheeks, talking about family betrayal and how people you trust can destroy your life. I can't even begin to process what's happened, she sobbed to the camera. My own sister has chosen to ruin my relationship and my career over something that could have been worked out privately. I'm heartbroken, I'm devastated, and I don't know how to move forward from this. The comments were brutal. Her followers had clearly done some investigating and found my social media, found articles about estate jewelry theft, found ways to piece together what had really happened. Girl, you stole your sister's inheritance ring. That's not family drama, that's felony theft, one person wrote. And it had 3,000 likes. Another comment thread was even worse. She literally posted pics of herself wearing stolen jewelry and got caught by a professional appraiser. This is the definition of fuck around and find out, followed by crying, laughing emojis and screenshots of her old posts flaunting the ring. But it was her most recent post that made my stomach drop, a photo of her empty ring finger with the caption, "When your family chooses material possessions over love, lost my relationship, lost my trust, lost everything that mattered to me, but I'll rebuild stronger than ever. #betrayed, #famelifirst, #survivor." The engagement on the post was massive, but not in the way she wanted. Thousands of comments calling her out, exposing her lies, sharing the story with their own followers, and I watched in real time as her carefully curated brand disintegrated under the weight of public scrutiny. Oh God, I said, showing Ben the screen. She's trying to spin this as me being the villain. Let her. Ben said, anyone with half a brain can see what really happened, but the damage was spreading beyond just social media. My phone rang, and it was Harold Weinstein, my grandmother's lawyer. Leila, he said, I've been contacted by several journalists asking about the inheritance dispute. I wanted to check with you before I made any statements. What kind of journalists? I asked. Lifestyle publications, social media, news outlets. Apparently your sister's situation has attracted attention in the influencer community. Harold said theft of inherited jewelry is unusual enough that people are interested in the legal implications. What should I tell them if they contact me? I asked. Tell them nothing, Harold said firmly. Let the facts speak for themselves. You have nothing to gain from engaging with media circus. But the circus was already in full swing. By noon, my work email had 3 interview requests from publications I'd never heard of, and Ben texted me from school that his students were asking if he was related to the inheritance ring lady they'd seen on TikTok. He was scrolling through the latest wave of social media posts when my phone rang. Tyler's name on the caller ID, and I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Leila, his voice was tight, controlled. I need to talk to you about what happened. What about it? I said I had no idea. He said, I swear to you I had no idea that ring was stolen. When I bought it, the estate dealer showed me paperwork, said it was from a legitimate estate sale. I believe you, I said, and I did. Tyler was many things, but he wasn't stupid enough to knowingly buy stolen jewelry. What did the dealer tell you when you asked for your money back? That's the problem, Tyler said. When I went back with the receipt, they said they'd need to verify the theft report and conduct their own investigation. It could take weeks, and meanwhile I'm out $15,000. That's between you and them. I said, you're the one who bought stolen property. I know, but Tyler paused. Look, I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me, but this whole thing has been a nightmare. Cassie lied to me about everything, and now I'm dealing with legal issues and bad publicity. Welcome to my world, I said, except I didn't choose any of this. I know, Tyler said, and I'm sorry I got involved. I'm sorry I believed her lies. I'm sorry your family is so messed up. After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected, a tiny sliver of sympathy for Tyler, who'd been just as manipulated by Cassie as everyone else, except he'd paid $15,000 for the privilege. But my sympathy evaporated when I saw Cassie's next Instagram story. A video of her packing boxes in what looked like an expensive apartment, moving out of the place Tyler and I shared. She said to the camera, starting over after everything that's happened, but I'm grateful for the lesson about who people really are. When things get difficult, the comments on that story were different, though supportive in a way that made my skin crawl. You're so strong, babe, and family shouldn't treat you like this, and you deserve better than people who don't appreciate you. She was building a narrative, painting herself as the victim of a cruel sister and an unfaithful boyfriend, and some people were booing it, people who didn't know the full story. who only saw a beautiful woman crying on camera talking about betrayal, and last Wednesday morning brought a new development, a text from mom. That made my blood pressure spike. Cassie's therapist wants to meet with the family to discuss healing and moving forward. Can you come in Thursday afternoon? I called Ben immediately. They want family therapy. I said they want me to sit in a room with Cassie and talk about healing. What do you want to do? Ben asked. I want to tell them exactly where they can shove their therapy session. I said, but I also know that if I don't go, they'll use it as more evidence that I'm the unreasonable one, so go. Ben said, go and let the therapist hear your side. Let them see the documentation. Let them understand what really happened. The therapist's office was one of those aggressively calming spaces, all beige and soft lighting, and inspirational quotes on the walls. Dr. Sarah Chen introduced herself as someone who specialized in family dynamics and conflict resolution, and I immediately wondered how much Cassie and mom had told her. I understand there's been a significant conflict over inherited property, Dr. Chen said once we were all seated, and that everyone is feeling hurt and misunderstood. There's been theft. I said before anyone else could speak. There's been lies and gaslighting, and now there's an attempt to rewrite history. Leela, mom said, we're here to heal, not to make more accusations. I'm here to make sure the therapist understands what actually happened. I said, not whatever version of events you've told her. Dr. Chen looked between us with professional calm. Why don't we start with each person sharing their perspective on the situation? Cassie went first, and her performance was Academy Award worthy, tears flowing as she talked about feeling unloved and unsupported, about how Tyler had abandoned her when she needed him most, about how I had chosen material possessions over family relationships. I never meant for any of this to happen, she said. I just wanted to feel special, to feel like someone cared enough about me to give me something beautiful. So you stole from your sister, Dr. Chen said, and it wasn't a question. I didn't steal anything, Cassie said, but the words came out automatic. Rehearse. Tyler bought me that ring. Tyler bought stolen property, I said, and pulled out my phone, showing Dr. Chen the documentation I'd photographed because someone sold him my grandmother's ring after taking it from my jewelry box. Dr. Chen studied the photos with professional interest. This is quite extensive documentation, she said. And you're saying this ring was taken from your home without permission? Yes, I said, while I was in the shower, trusting that my family wouldn't steal from me. Cassie, Dr. Chen said, how do you respond to this evidence? I respond that my sister is more interested in being right than in preserving our family. Cassie said, I respond that she's chosen to humiliate me publicly rather than work things out privately. You humiliated yourself, I said, by stealing from me and then flaunting it online. Girls, mom said, please let's try to focus on moving forward. There is no moving forward, I said. There's only acknowledgement of what happened and consequences for actions. What would acknowledgement look like to you? Dr. Chen asked. It would look like Cassie admitting that she stole from me, I said. It would look like her taking responsibility for her choices instead of playing victim. And if that doesn't happen, Dr. Chen asked, then we don't have a relationship, I said, because I won't be gaslight and manipulated by people who think family loyalty means protecting thieves. The session went downhill from there, mom crying about her family falling apart, dad sitting in uncomfortable silence, Cassie alternating between tears and anger, Dr. Chen trying to find common ground where none existed. But it was after the session that the real conversation happened, dad walking me to my car while mom and Cassie stayed behind to schedule more appointments. She's not going to admit it, he said. She's not going to take responsibility. I know, I said, and I'm okay with that. Are you? Dad asked. Are you really okay with losing your sister? I already lost my sister, I said, the moment she decided to steal from me. The sister I thought I had doesn't exist and never did. What about your mother? Dad asked. What about us? I looked at him and saw the exhaustion, the defeat, the recognition that his family was broken beyond repair. That depends, I said, on whether you're willing to live in reality or keep enabling her delusions. I can't control what your mother does, Dad said, but I want you to know that I see you. I see what happened, and I'm sorry it took me so long to stand up for you. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. That means more than you know. Driving home, I felt the weight of finality settling over me, the understanding that some relationships don't survive, the truth that some families can't handle accountability, that some bridges burn completely and leave only ashes. But I also felt something else, relief that I was finally free from the obligation to keep the peace, to manage other people's emotions, to sacrifice my own dignity for the illusion of family harmony. Ibn was waiting for me at home with dinner and wine and the wedding planning binder we'd been neglecting since this whole nightmare started, ready to focus on our Future, he asked. More than ready, I said, and for the first time in weeks I felt like I could see past the drama to the life we were building together, the family we would create based on truth and respect and love that didn't require silence. In the face of betray me, phone buzzed with another text from Mom, but I didn't read it. Instead, I turned it off and spent the evening planning our wedding, our honeymoon, our life together. And I didn't think about Cassie or her tears or her lies on Sethi. Healing would come later, but first I needed to learn how to live without the family that had never really seen me anyway. 3 days after the disastrous therapy session, Dad showed up at my apartment, unannounced, carrying a cardboard box and wearing the expression of a man who'd been doing some serious soul-searching. Ben answered the door, and I heard them talking quietly in the hallway before Dad appeared in my living room. Looking older than his 62 years, I brought you something, he said, setting the box down on my coffee table. Something that belonged to your grandmother, that your mother's been keeping from you. What do you mean keeping from me? I asked, sitting down across from him, watching as he opened the box with careful, reverent hands. I mean that when we cleaned out Grandma Evelyn's house after she died, your mother found this hidden in her bedroom closet and decided you didn't need to see it. Dad said, pulling out a leather-bound journal with a brass clasp. She said it would just make you more attached to the past, more resistant to moving forward. I reached for the journal with trembling fingers, recognizing Grandma Evelyn's careful handwriting on the cover. Thoughts for Leela, written in fading blue ink. She wrote this for me, I said, and it wasn't a question. She wrote it during her last year when she knew she was dying. Dad said she wanted you to understand why she chose you for the ring, why she trusted you with the family legacy. I opened the journal and saw pages and pages of my grandmother's writing, entries dated over the course of months, chronicling her thoughts about family, about strength, about the difference between being loved and being respected. Your mother thought it would make you difficult, Dad said, and I could hear the quotation marks in his voice, the years of frustration finally boiling over. She thought it would give you ideas about standing up for yourself. God forbid, I said, reading the first entry, dated just 6 months before Grandma Evelyn died. My dearest Leela, as I write this, I am thinking about the woman you are becoming and the woman I hope you will be when you read these words someday. I am thinking about strength and how it is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes strength is quiet, sometimes it is patient, but it should never be invisible. She knew, Dad said, she knew that you would face challenges that people would try to take what was yours, and she wanted to prepare you for that. I flipped through the pages, seeing my name mentioned over and over, seeing my grandmother's observations about my childhood, my character, my potential, and her growing concerns about the way my parents were raising Cassie and me. She was worried about the favoritism, I said, reading an entry from 8 months before she died. She was worried that you and Mom were teaching Cassie that she could have whatever she wanted without earning it. She tried to talk to us about it, Dad said. She tried to warn us that we were setting both of you up for failure, but your mother said she was interfering, said she was too old to understand modern parenting. Modern parenting, I said, is that what we're calling enabling narcissism now? Dad was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him working up to something, struggling with words that had been trapped inside him for years. I got a text from Cassie yesterday, he said finally. What did it say? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to. Noted, pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. It said, "This is all your fault, Dad. If you hadn't taken Leela's side, I would still have Tyler and my career wouldn't be ruined. You chose the wrong daughter." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She's blaming you now. She's blaming everyone except herself, Dad said. And that's when I realized that your grandmother was right about everything. We failed both of you, Leela. We failed you by not protecting you from Cassie's entitlement. And we failed Cassie by never teaching her consequences. It's not too late. You wanted healing was just beginning, but at least now, it was possible. At 2 weeks after Dad moved out of the family home, Cassie posted the engagement announcement that made my blood run cold. A photo of her left hand adorned with a massive diamond ring, easily twice the size of Grandma Evelyn's emerald. The caption reading, "When you thought you'd lost everything, but then real love finds you. Marcus proposed last night. And I've never been happier. #blessed. #second chances. #real love. #upgrade. I screenshotted it immediately and sent it to Ben, who called me within minutes. Who the hell is Marcus? He asked. I have no idea, I said, but look at the timeline. Dad moves out 2 weeks ago. Tyler dumps her 3 weeks ago, and now she's engaged to someone I've never heard of. That's not possible, Ben said. You don't go from breakup to engagement in 3 weeks with someone completely new. But as I scrolled through Cassie's recent posts, I could see the breadcrumbs. She'd been laying a mysterious dinner with someone's special post from 10 days ago, a story about feeling grateful for unexpected connections from a week ago. And now this massive diamond ring that looked like it cost more than most people's cars. She's rebounding hard, I said, or she's found her next victim. The comments on the engagement post were a mix of congratulations and barely concealed skepticism. Her followers were clearly confused about who Marcus was and how this relationship had appeared out of nowhere. Wait, what happened to Tyler? One person wrote, and Cassie had responded with, some people aren't meant for your journey. Marcus sees my worth. But it was the next post that really worried me, a video of Cassie sitting in what looked like a very expensive restaurant, showing off the ring while talking about fresh starts and learning to trust again. Sometimes life takes everything away from you to make room for something better, she said to the camera. Marcus understands my heart in ways that other people never could. I called Dad immediately. Have you seen Cassie's Instagram? I asked. I don't follow her anymore, Dad said. After that text blaming me for her problems, I decided I needed some distance. What's she done now? She's engaged, I said to someone named Marcus, who apparently proposed after knowing her for less than 3 weeks. Dad was quiet for a long moment. That's fast, even for Cassie. He said, do you know anything about this Marcus person? Nothing, I said, but I'm going to find out. It didn't take long. A basic social media search revealed Marcus Blackwood, 48 years old, divorced venture capitalist with houses in Manhattan and the Hamptons and a social media presence that screamed old money and older divorce settlements. His Instagram was full of expensive wine, art gallery openings and charity galas, the kind of man who collected beautiful women like art pieces. He's loaded, I told Ben that night, showing him Marcus's profile, like seriously wealthy, and he looks like the kind of guy who enjoys having a young, beautiful fiancée on his arm. Think she told him about the theft? Ben asked. Absolutely not. I said, look at his post. He's all about image and reputation. There's no way he'd get involved with someone who'd been publicly exposed for stealing jewelry. But the more I looked into Marcus Blackwood, the more concerned I became. This wasn't just some rebound relationship. This was Cassie's calculated attempt to reinvent herself, to find a man wealthy enough to bankroll her lifestyle and powerful enough to protect her from the consequences of her previous leased wedding. Planning started immediately. Cassie posting stories about venue tours, dress shopping and engagement party planning, all happening at breakneck speed, like she was afraid someone might change their mind if she slowed down. They're having the engagement party at the country club, I told Dad when he called me the next week. Mom sent me an invitation. Are you going to go? Dad asked. Hell no, I said, but I'm worried about what Cassie's told him about our family, about what happened with the ring. You think she's lied to him? I think she's told him a completely different version of events, I said. I think she's painted herself as the victim of a greedy sister and an abusive family. Dad sighed heavily. Should we warn him? I don't know, I said. Maybe he deserves to know what he's getting into, or maybe he's exactly the kind of man who doesn't care as long as she looks good at his charity events. The engagement party was scheduled for the following Saturday at the Westchester Country Club, and I spent the week debating whether I should attend, whether I owed it to Marcus to tell him the truth about the woman he was planning to marry. What would you accomplish? Ben asked. Besides making yourself look vindictive? I don't know, I said, but I keep thinking about Tyler, how he got dragged into Cassie's lies without knowing it, how he lost $15,000 because say he trusted her. Tyler was a victim to Ben said, but Marcus is a grown man who's choosing to marry someone he's known for 3 weeks. That's his decision to make. But Thursday afternoon, Dad called with news that changed everything. I went to lunch with my old golf buddy Jim Hendricks. He said turns out he knows Marcus Blackwood from the club, and he had some interesting things to say. Like what? I asked. Like Marcus just went through a very expensive divorce and his ex-wife took him to the cleaners, Dad said, and like he's got a reputation for dating much younger women who are looking for financial security, so this is transactional. I said it sounds like it. Dad said, but there's something else. Jim said Marcus has been asking questions about our family, about you, specifically about me. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of questions? About your job, your character, whether you're the type of person who would make false accusations against family members, Dad said. Cassie's definitely told him her version of events, which means she's told him I'm a vindictive sister who tried to destroy her relationship with Tyler over a piece of jewelry. I said. Probably, Dad said, and Marcus is smart enough to do his homework before he marries someone, so he's investigating me. It sounds like it, Dad said, which means he's not as naive as we thought. That night I lay awake thinking about Marcus Blackwood and what it meant that he was asking questions about me. Either he was a careful man who wanted to know the truth about his fiancée's family, or he was a calculating man who wanted to make sure Cassie's version of events would hold up under scrutiny. Friday afternoon, I made a decision. I called the country club and asked to speak to the events coordinator. I'm calling about the Blackwood Morgan engagement party tomorrow night. I said I need to confirm my attendance, of course. The woman said, may I have your name? Leila Morgan, I said. Sister of the bride. Ben looked at me like I'd lost my mind when I told him you're going to the engagement party. He said, the engagement party thrown by the woman who stole from you for the man she's known for 3 weeks. I'm going to the engagement party, I said, because Marcus Blackwood has been asking questions about me, and I think he deserves to hear answers from the source. This is going to be a disaster, Ben said. Probably. I said, but it's going to be an honest disaster. Saturday evening, I chose my outfit carefully, a simple black dress that said professional, but not threatening. Grandma Evelyn's emerald ring on my right hand where it couldn't be missed, and the locket Dad had given me hidden beneath my neckline for strength. You sure about this? Ben asked as we pulled into the country club parking lot. I'm sure that I'm tired of letting Cassie control the narrative, I said. I'm sure that if Marcus Blackwood is going to marry into this family, he should know what he's really getting. The engagement party was exactly what I'd expected: elegant, understated, expensive, with Cassie holding court in a flowing white dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Marcus at her side, looking every inch the distinguished older man with his trophy. Fine Simum spotted me first, and I could see the panic flash across her face as she hurried over. Leila, she said, I didn't think you were coming. I changed my mind. I said I thought it was important to meet Marcus, to welcome him to the family properly. Please don't make a scene, Mom said. Please just let Cassie have this one happy moment. I'm not here to make a scene, I said. I'm here to make an introduction. I walked over to where Marcus and Cassie were receiving congratulations from other guests and waited for a break in the conversation. Marcus, I said, extending my hand. I'm Leila Morgan, Cassie's sister. Marcus took my hand, and I could see him studying my face, clearly trying to reconcile whatever Cassie had told him with the composed professional woman standing in front of him. Leila, he said, I've heard so much about you. I'm sure you have, I said, and I imagine most of it was interesting fiction. Cassie's face went white and she grabbed Marcus's arm possessively. Leila, what are you doing here? I'm here to congratulate you, I said, and to make sure Marcus understands what kind of family he's marrying into. Excuse us, Marcus said smoothly. Cassie, why don't you go check on the champagne service? I'd like to talk to your sister privately. Cassie looked like she wanted to argue, but Marcus's tone brooked no disagreement, and she walked away, leaving us alone by the windows overlooking the golf course. So Marcus said, you're the vindictive sister who tried to destroy Cassie's relationship over a piece of jewelry. I'm the sister who recovered stolen property, I said, and I have documentation to prove it. Marcus studied me for a long moment. Show me, he said. Marcus led me to a quiet corner of the country club terrace away from the celebration inside, and I could see in his eyes that this wasn't his first time dealing with someone trying to con him, that wealth had taught him to be suspicious of beautiful women with complicated stories. I did my homework on your family, he said. Without preamble, I know about your grandmother's ring, I know about the police report, I know about the professional appraisal that confirmed theft. I felt my eyebrows rise. You know all that, and you're still here. I'm here because I wanted to meet you, Marcus said. I wanted to see if you were the vindictive opportunist Cassie described or something else entirely. And what's your conclusion? I asked. That Cassie is a very talented liar, Marcus said, and that you're exactly the kind of woman who would fight for what's rightfully hers. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos of the documentation Harold had given me, the appraisal reports, the inheritance papers, Jasmine's authentication. This is what really happened, I said. Your fiancé stole a $15,000 family heirloom and then built her entire relationship with Tyler around the lie that he gave it to her. Marcus studied the photos with the careful attention of someone who'd spent decades evaluating investments. Impressive documentation, he said. Your grandmother was thorough. She was smart, I said. She knew that someday someone would try to take what was mine, and she wanted to make sure I could prove my case. Like your sister did, Marcus said. Like my sister did, I confirmed. Marcus was quiet for a moment, looking out over the golf course, where other wealthy families were playing their own complicated games. I should tell you something, he said. I'm not actually engaged to Cassie. What I said, feeling the world tilt sideways. But the ring, the announcement, the ring is real, Marcus said, but the engagement is performance art. I've been investigating your sister since the day she contacted me. She contacted you, I said, through a mutual friend who thought we'd be perfect for each other. Marcus said, a young beautiful woman looking for stability, an older man looking for companionship. It seemed straightforward. Until I started getting anonymous tips about her history. Anonymous tips from who? Tyler Grant Marcus, said your sister's ex-boyfriend who wanted to make sure I knew what I was getting into. I felt a laugh bubbling up in my chest. The absurdity of Tyler trying to protect other men from Cassie's lies. So this whole engagement is fake. This whole engagement is an investigation. Marcus said. I wanted to see how far she'd go, what stories she'd tell, how elaborate her deceptions could become. And what did you discover that she's told me? At least 12 different lies about her family, her career, her financial situation, and her relationship history, Marcus said, including a particularly creative version of the ring theft, where you planted evidence to frame her. She said. I planted evidence, I said. She said you were jealous of her relationship with Tyler and that you hired a fake appraiser to destroy her happiness. Marcus said it was quite the performance. I shook my head in amazement at Cassie's audacity. So what happens? Now I end this charade publicly, Marcus said, and your sister learns that some people are smarter than she thinks they are at your own engagement party. At what was supposed to be my engagement party, Marcus corrected, but what's actually going to be a very expensive lesson in consequences. We walked back inside together, and I could see Cassie watching us from across the room, her expression anxious as she tried to read Marcus's face, tried to determine whether her lies were holding up under scrutiny. But before Marcus could make his move, the evening took an unexpected turn. Dad walked in through the main entrance looking determined. And behind him, to my complete shock, was Tyler Grant carrying what looked like legal documents. Oh, shit, I said under my breath. This should be interesting, Marcus said with what sounded like genuine amusement. Cassie spotted them immediately, and I watched her face cycle through confusion, panic, and then calculation as she tried to figure out how to spin their presence to her advantage. Marcus, darling, she said, hurrying over to us. I don't know why my father and my ex-boyfriend are here, but I'm sure we can handle this privately. Actually, Tyler said, stepping forward, I think this is exactly where we need to handle it publicly in front of everyone who's been fed lies about what really happened. Tyler, what are you doing here? Cassie said, and her voice was high-pitched, desperate. I'm here to return this, Tyler said, holding up a manila envelope. The settlement agreement your lawyer sent me demanding that I pay for your emotional distress and damaged reputation. What settlement agreement? I asked. The one where Cassie is suing me for $50,000, Tyler said, claiming that I knowingly bought stolen jewelry and then abandoned her when he needed support. You're suing Tyler, Marcus said to Cassie, and I could hear the dangerous calm in his voice. It's not what it sounds like, Cassie said, but she was backing away from all of us now. Tyler ruined my life. He owes me compensation. Tyler bought stolen property from an estate dealer, I said, because you stole my ring and sold it to them first. That's not what happened, Cassie said, but her voice was getting shriller. Actually, it is exactly what happened, Dad said, stepping forward. With his own documents, I hired a private investigator to trace the ring's path from your sister's apartment to Tyler's hands. The guests around us were starting to pay attention to the drama unfolding, conversations stopping as people turned to watch the Morgan family implode in real time. According to the investigation, Dad continued, Cassie sold the ring to Hartwell Estate Jewelry on Madison Avenue 3 days after she stole it. Then she helped Tyler choose it when he was looking for an anniversary gift. You helped him pick out the ring you stole from me, I said, and I could feel my anger rising. You literally guided him to buy back your own stolen merchandise. I didn't steal anything, Cassie said, but the words sounded automatic, meaningless. The investigation also revealed, Dad said, raising his voice so the entire room could hear, that Cassie has been running this scam for months, stealing jewelry from family members, selling it to estate dealers, and then helping new boyfriends discover it. That's not true, Cassie said, but she was looking around desperately for an escape route. It is true, Tyler said. I found 2 other men who went through the exact same experience with you, James Morrison and David Chen. Both bought you gifts that turned out to be stolen from your relatives. The room was completely silent now, everyone staring at Cassie as the magnitude of her deception became clear. This wasn't just about one stolen ring, this was about a pattern of calculated fraud, Cassie, Marcus said, and his voice cut through the silence like a blade. Is there anything you'd like to tell me about your business model, Marcus? Please, Cassie said. And now she was crying real tears of panic. Please don't listen to them. They're trying to destroy me because they are jealous. Jealous of what? Marcus asked. Jealous of your talent for theft or jealous of your skill at manipulation? I love you, Cassie said desperately. I love you, and I thought you loved me. I don't love liars, Marcus said, and I don't love thieves. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the massive diamond ring that had been the centerpiece of Cassie's latest reinvention. This belongs to you, he said, holding it out. considerate payment for the entertainment value of watching you construct an entire false identity. No, Cassie said, backing away from the ring. No, you can't do this to me. I can and I am. Marcus said, this engagement is over. This relationship is over, and if you contact me again, I'll be filing harassment charges. Cassie looked around the room at all the faces staring at her with disgust and fascination, and I could see the exact moment when she realized that this time there was no spinning her way out of consequences, no playing victim, no finding someone else to blame. This is all your fault, she said, turning to me with pure venom in her voice. This is all your fault, Leela. You destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life, I said, by choosing lies over truth, theft over honesty, manipulation over love. I hate you, Cassie said. I hate all of you. She grabbed her purse and ran toward the exit, but Tyler stepped into her path. You're not leaving until you sign this, he said, holding out more papers. You're dropping the lawsuit, and you're admitting in writing that you defrauded me. I won't sign anything, Cassie said. Then you'll be arrested for fraud, conspiracy, and theft, Dad said, because I've already filed complaints with the police and the district attorney's office. Cassie looked from Tyler to Dad to me to Marcus, and I could see her calculating one last time, looking for an angle, looking for someone to save her. But there was no one left. Fine, she said, snatching the pen from Tyler. Fine, I'll sign your stupid papers, but don't expect me to thank you for ruining my life. We didn't ruin your life, I said. We just stopped letting you ruin ours. Cassie signed the documents with angry slashes of the pen, then threw them at Tyler's feet. There, she said. Are you happy now? I'm satisfied, Tyler said. Justice has a way of being satisfying. Cassie looked at all of us one more time, and I could see something broken in her expression, something that might have been the first glimmer of real self-awareness. You'll regret this, she said. All of you will regret destroying me. The only thing I regret, I said, is how long it took me to stand up to you. Cassie ran out of the country club, leaving behind a room full of shocked guests, a pile of legal documents, and the wreck of someone hoping for a miracle. The truth is that I was jealous of you, I continued, not just because you had the ring, but because you had everything that I wanted: respect from people who mattered, success that you earn, love that was based on who you really are instead of who you pretended to be. I was jealous that you never had to lie to get people to love you. I felt tears starting to form and blinked them away, not wanting to ruin my makeup, but also not wanting to stop reading. The truth is that I stole the ring because I wanted to feel special, because I wanted something beautiful that made me feel worthy, but the moment I put it on, I knew it didn't belong to me. And instead of doing the right thing, I decided to lie, because lying was easier than admitting I was wrong. Keep reading, Dad said softly. The truth is that I built my whole identity around getting attention and validation from other people. And when you threatened to take that away by telling people what I had really done, I panicked, and I tried to destroy you because I thought that was the only way to save myself. I sat down on the small sofa in the bridal suite, feeling the weight of words I'd waited years to hear. The truth is that I have hurt everyone who ever loved me because I was too scared to be vulnerable, too scared to admit when I was wrong, too scared to be a real person instead of a performance. And I understand now that fear is not an excuse for cruelty. She's really been working with Dr. Chen, I said to Dad, every day for 6 months. Dr. Chen said this letter took her 8 drafts to write because she kept trying to make herself sound better. And I kept making her start over until she could write the truth without trying to manage how you would respond to it. I continued reading. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to want a relationship with me. I don't even expect you to finish reading this letter. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I took from you and what I took from our family. I know that Grandma Evelyn's ring wasn't just jewelry. I know that it represented something about strength and legacy, and becoming the kind of woman who fights for what's right. I know that when I stole it, I wasn't just taking a ring, I was taking your connection to the woman who taught you how to be strong. I felt my throat tighten with emotion as I realized that Cassie finally understood what she had tried to destroy. I know that you fought for that ring not because you cared about money, but because you cared about truth and justice and honoring the woman who believed in you. I know that when I lied about stealing it, I wasn't just lying about theft, I was lying about who you were and who I was and what our family meant. Dad reached over and squeezed my hand as I turned to the final page. I want you to know that I am proud of you for fighting back. I'm proud of you for not letting me gaslight you into believing that wrong was right. I am proud of you for choosing truth over family peace, and I am proud of you for becoming the kind of woman Grandma Evelyn knew you could be. I had to stop reading for a moment to compose myself because these were words I'd never thought I'd hear from Cassie, words that acknowledged not just what she'd done but why it mattered. I hope that someday when I am healthier, when I have learned how to be honest and take responsibility when I have proven that I can be trusted. I hope that maybe we can have some kind of relationship, but I understand if that day never comes, and I understand that it's not your job to wait for me to become a better person. The final paragraph was the shortest but somehow carried the most. Wait, today is your wedding day, and you are marrying someone who loves you for exactly who you are, someone who stood by you when everything was falling apart, someone who sees your strength and your worth. I hope you are happy, I hope you are loved, and I hope you know that you deserve all the beautiful things that life has to offer. Love, Cassie. I folded the letter carefully and sat in silence for a moment, processing words that felt like they came from a different person than the sister I'd known my entire life. What do you think? Dr. Chen asked. I think it's a start, I said. A real start. Recovery is a long process, Dr. Chen said, and there's no guarantee that the progress will continue. But this letter represents genuine insight, genuine remorse, and genuine accountability. Will she be at the rehab facility much longer? Dad asked. At least another 3 months, Dr. Chen said, and then outpatient therapy for at least a year after that. She's committed to doing the work. After Dr. Chen left, I sat with Dad in comfortable silence, holding Cassie's letter and feeling something I hadn't felt in years, hope that maybe someday my sister could become a person I could trust again. Are you ready? Sarah asked, peeking in again. Ben's getting nervous and the guests are seated. I stood up and looked at myself in the mirror on a final time, seeing not just a bride, but a woman who'd fought for what mattered, who'd chosen truth over comfort, who'd honored the legacy of strength that ran in her family. I'm ready. I said. The ceremony was everything Ben and I had dreamed of. Intimate, meaningful, surrounded by people who loved us for who we really were, not who we pretended to be. Dad walked me down the aisle with pride and joy written on his face, and when I reached Ben, I could see in his eyes the same love and respect that had carried us through the hardest months of our relationship. You look stunning, Ben whispered as we joined hands. I feel free, I whispered back. The vows we'd written ourselves spoke about truth and partnership, about standing together when the world tried to tear you apart, about choosing love that was based on reality, not fantasy. And as we promised to build a life together, I felt the weight of my grandmother's legacy settling around me like a blessing. At the reception, Dad gave a toast that brought tears to my eyes. To Leela and Ben, he said, raising his glass, to a couple who understand that real love is built on truth, that real partnership requires courage, and that real family is chosen, not just inherited. Later that evening, as Ben and I danced to our first song as husband and wife, I felt my grandmother's ring catching the light on my right hand and my wedding ring shining on my left, and I understood finally what Grandma Evelyn had really given me, not just jewelry, but the knowledge that some things were worth fighting for. Any regrets? Ben asked as we swayed together. Only that it took me so long to understand who I really was, I said, and who I wanted to become. And who is that? Ben asked. Someone strong enough to tell the truth, I said. Someone brave enough to fight for what matters, someone worthy of the love she's been given. The next morning, we left for our honeymoon in Italy, carrying with us the promise of a future built on honesty and respect, and the knowledge that we'd already survived the kind of tests that either destroy relationships or make them unbreakable. I packed Cassie's letter in my suitcase, not because I was ready to forgive her, but because I was ready to hope that forgiveness might be possible someday, when she'd proven that her words matched her actions, when she'd shown that she could choose truth over comfort, just as I had learned to. Some stories end with dramatic reconciliations, but this one ended with something more valuable, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I'd become the woman my grandmother had believed I could be, that I'd chosen integrity over image, truth over peace, love that was real over love that was performance. Sometimes that's the only happy ending that matters, the one where you discover that you're strong enough to save yourself.